What's going on, everybody? This is Phil Bohol, founder of the Kor Initiative, and today I have Keith Langskov from Texas joining us. He's going to be sharing his story of his growth over the past months and really what some of these unlocks are for him, how it helped him, how it changed his business, how it changed his life. Keith, thanks for joining us today, bro.
Appreciate you having me, man.
Awesome. So I know that we have some of the guys in the brotherhood that are interested to know kind of how you've taken a quantum leap. Do you see what you've done as a quantum leap?
I think that there's aspects that I'm like, wow, there's a night and day kind of difference in a lot of different areas. Um, Getting a little
Good.
feedback, but I don't know. Can you hear it? If you can't hear it, I'll try and deal with it.
No, I can't hear anything.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
sorry guys, we're having some tech issues, but yeah, so a lot of the guys are seeing quantum leaps, right? And I think that in order to go forward, we have to go backwards a little bit, kind of unpack your story because Keith, he's a serial entrepreneur. He's had different businesses. He's been in real estate. He's a Marine Corps vet, obviously. And so let's kind of talk about before the brotherhood, bro. Before we started talking, because I think that you messaged me, I think you saw something about me talking about the Core Initiative when we initially launched, and you had reached out. Before that, let's say the weeks leading up to that conversation, where were you at mentally, emotionally, spiritually in your business? Let's kind of start from there.
yeah, these are technical difficulties, man. I heard about half of that come through, and then had to switch back to this feedback. So you guys don't hear it. Um,
Well, let's unfuck it real quick. So, is it me when I talk? Do you hear the feedback, or when you're talking?
No, it's only when I'm talking.
How about now? Is it clear?
Let me see. No, it's still there. On my, it's something to do with me.
Oh, you know what? Here, let's do this. Hold on. Okay. Send it. Try one more time. I can do this. Let's do it.
Okay,
Try one.
is it okay? It's not there.
Okay, fine. Let's just roll it while it works. While it works. Okay,
Yeah.
so as I was saying earlier, we just gotta adapt and overcome. As I was saying earlier, Keith has had background in multiple different business ventures. He's been in real estate. He's started other companies. So he's not new to the game when he plugged in. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and like I said earlier, what we want to do is we want to go backwards first. If you guys want to know how he, has grown as a human being, but in his business as well, we have to understand kind of the context. So, Keith, can you kind of explain to me? Before you reached out, when I first started talking about the Core Initiative, you probably saw me posting about it, talking about it, launching this thing, right? The Core 10. The weeks before that, though, I want you to go back and kind of think about where were you at mentally, where were you at emotionally, spiritually, with family in your business. Let's start there to give these guys kind of a background of where you started so they can kind of see the journey of where you're at today.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the journey kind of started in like right around like August of 23 was when I kind of started listening to a lot of your stuff. And just I really plugged in kind of way back then on just some of your daily, just what you were doing daily, and really admired it. So that was kind of always in the back of my head. And then when I opened up this new business, I bootstrapped it. So it's like everything you bootstrap, it's like it's it's going to be a long ride. It's usually a grind for 6, 8, 9, 10 months. So I started the business last year in December, and so I had this like huge grind all the way up to a week, 2 weeks before plugging in with the Core Initiative. And it was just, it was that tired CEO doing everything, like running all the jobs. I was actually working a lot of my jobs in the flooring company. So I would get jobs and I'd actually go out there and make sure, that the guys were doing it right and actually work with them quite a bit. And, that's kind of the things that led to lack of family time, lack of, energy, just overall burnout, just really only working on the business, but then also there's areas where the business was failing, and most of it was operational issues that just not enough time in the day. So
Yeah, 100%. Are you open to sharing with them, like what you were producing back then?
Yeah, you know, is any, there was, it wasn't consistent, but it was like, 30 to 40, usually right around there. There were some months where it was like slower.
Yeah.
And that's to be expected, like, when you're starting something up. So, but right when I got into the core initiative, I'd say like right around 40 to 50. But
Okay.
I was burning both ends of the candle, man. It
Yeah.
was
And I like to highlight that because when people start getting to higher numbers, it's very easy to forget like how much hustle and grind is required to do that. Were you like internal at that point? Were you just running and gunning? Because I think that you told me that you got to 11, you're like, man, like we're crushing it right out the gate. I think you told me you like officially launched it in December and then just took off from there. Were you internal, like in your head? Like, a lot of the times when people get super busy, they forget the vision, they forget like their surroundings, and they're just operating day in, day out, day in, day out. What was going on for you during that season?
yeah, yeah, I mean, you're definitely in the fog, and it's hard to operate and operate clearly. So, I mean, one of the things kind of fast forwarding the core initiative that like you said right off the bat, like, dude, you got to get off the tools. You got to start, kind of clearing that, given more space, more time to think. And so those were all things that I didn't do. And then there was a lot of negative feedback loops. I'm like a really positive guy, but I had negative feedback loops that I didn't really notice, and didn't feel them until the core initiative started, and I started listening to some of those loops, and I'm just like, man, I gotta, these are the tweaks that I need to make in order to, you know, break through this next level.
Yeah. Now looking backwards, what were some of those negative feedback loops? Because somebody might be listening to this, they're going through that, but they're not aware that those were negative feedback. What were some of those things?
So I had a lot of pain on just missing my family, right? Like
Mhm.
missing my kid. I got a 4-year old, well, he's 5 now, and then a 3.5-year old, and then of course my wife. Like, not seeing them in the mornings consistently because I'm out of the house by 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, and then like later on at night, not seeing them because I work till 8 or 9 and they're already in bed, or I work till 10 or 1. I mean, there's some days that like I put in work, and it's so missing your family. So then what does that do is that it just affects everything else. And then it's like, well, is this business even worth it? It's like I'm working, extremely hard, but for what? Everyone says, oh, I work for my family. Well, to see them or to like provide them a life while you're not there, like,
Yeah.
and so I think that's like a provider issue, right? Like as a provider, as a man, it's like, you're balancing this, hey, I still need to provide, but I got to provide better, but I don't know how, or I don't
Yeah.
know the next steps, right? So I knew a lot of like all of business, most of business, right, is internal. So I knew, okay, if I fix myself, I can fix these problems.
Mhm.
So, and then, so that was one of the negative things that was just constantly hitting me. Another thing is, when you get to supervising, sometimes if you're not there, your guys do things differently or they'll cut corners, and that will cost you in the long run. And then you're tearing up a whole job just to do it right again. And so, having that thought of like, hey, man, it's going to be really hard for me to find somebody to be able to replace me to do this, and to, be that supervisor on the site, and I can kind of pull off and handle other operations of the business, and grow, because if you're working, you're not growing, right? It's just, there's no way to work in your business, especially as a contractor. Like you're not picking up the phone, you're not doing quotes, or going on sales calls. Like there's all this stuff you're not doing, and you're spending a day working, and you're just losing out of, a ton of money by, actually working. So in reality, it's like your time. So that was another huge thing unlock, was you recommended a book called Buy Back Your Time. So like I got that book and I read it like, audio book or whatever, and I like read it in 2 days or listened to it in 2 days. And like I was just like, wow, yeah, these are all the things that, like, some of the stuff I knew, but like just listening to that book, I was like, man, these are the things that I need to be doing, and I'm not. So why am I not doing that? And then that's the internal work that you have to figure out.
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes people, probably like when people are starting up businesses, they're like, man, I'm at like maybe 10K a month or whatever, maybe 20. To hear somebody at 40 to 50, I would think that like I'm on top of the world. And you mentioned that it's like, man, if you don't get to see your family much, then what's the point? Well, why did I really do this? Can you kind of talk about, because I talk about this a lot, but I don't think people really understand that when you're in the trenches, it's very difficult to find a way to maneuver. So can you kind of expand on how did it feel to know that business was crushing, but at the same time things maybe at home were not where you wanted them to be? How did it feel internally, where the money didn't even matter anymore because what was really valuable was you weren't being able to spend time there?
Yeah, you feel broken, right? Like there's a literally a piece inside of you that's broken, and it affects everything, right? Because if you're broken by not seeing your family and not being with your kids and missing out, like my wife would tell me like these little milestones, dude, and I'd just be like, oh, that's cool, man. I hope you really enjoy that, like, and then just like this week I chilled out a little bit because I like all from literally December 4th to 2 days before Christmas, and then right after Christmas, and then all the way until last week. Like I was just again running and gunning at a whole nother level. And I can kind of talk a little bit about what's similar there at that level of getting over now over 150K months versus 100K versus 50K. But going back to the 50K is that I was broken. There was aspects of me that was really just longing to be with my family, and I couldn't figure out how to provide and run this business and then also be with them. And so going into work, like you hate it. You're like, I live in Temple, so driving down to Austin is like almost an hour drive, and so then driving back's another hour. So like 2 hours of in the truck, just like, you know, I don't listen to music, so if an audiobook's not on or a podcast, like I'm thinking. So I do a lot of thinking in the truck while I'm driving, and just listening to your thoughts is something that I like to do. And that was where I was just constantly beating myself up. Not really acknowledging though that I was beating myself up. And it's like this loop that you're doing, and it's like you're going to get nowhere. You're just spinning tire in the dirt, and it's like you're not going to pull yourself out of it. You need to break that loop and then figure out, okay, well, how do I fix this? And that's where your battle planning came into play, right? So that was another huge step on that road to getting past the 50K mark and where I was prior to the Core Initiative.
100%. Yeah, because I think that's the part that people struggle with growing business. It's they forget that you got to refill the tank. And if you're growing and growing and growing this business, like it's cool, like it feels really good. The numbers sound really cool, and yeah, you build a massive business. But at the same time, if you feel unfulfilled, I think you use the word broken. That's how it feels. You kind of you may or may not start to feel resentment towards the business that you've built. You may or may not start to feel like you're disconnected from it. And to go back to your center, go back to your core, it's the most important thing because that's what's going to allow you to give that overflow back to the business. And so that's a great context, man, because I think that a lot of people, when they start hearing that somebody's, making a lot of money inside of their business, it's like, well, you got it going on, man. You got no problems. But the reality of business owners is like, we only have 24 hours in a fucking day, like we can't give everything to everybody. So we have to be very strategic with how we operate inside of our days. So let's talk a little bit about like, what led to our conversation. So I know I was posting during the time I was launching the Core Initiative. You were part of the original that plugged in. What was it that really called out to you? Because I'll share with you one thing that you told me that stood out for me. But what was it about the message? What was it about the Core Initiative that kind of like intrigued you enough to reach out and say what's up?
I think there was a lot of things. Obviously, the military background aspect, both being Marines, but I think the main thing was there was a part of me that was also alone, right? I was alone, like I was, a lone wolf tearing it up out in the streets, but just by myself. There was, if I needed to sleep, there was nobody there watching, right? Having your back, and so that's something that I immediately got within the brotherhood was like, hey, if another brother's hurting or he has an issue with whatever is going on in life, and it's like, well, man, I've been there. Like, I know the answers to that. Like, I'll tell them what's up, and then if they execute, then great. They're gonna learn a lot quicker. And so I did that a few times, and that obviously strengthened the brotherhood. But for me, it was that feeling alone was probably maybe number one. Just wanting to plug in with another group of men that were also at high level and doing business was one of the biggest things for me. And then the other one was by watching your daily videos, like I knew right off the bat, okay, this dude's the real deal. He's doing it every single day. He doesn't miss, and if he does miss, it's probably because he's prioritizing family, right? Like, and I respect that. Like, so that was the other aspect is like, is the instructor that I'm about to learn from actually in the trenches doing it himself, and does he model what he does? And you're that person, so it was easy for me to be like, okay, well, man, if I was locked in like him, if I had this discipline, if this is what he's going to teach in the brotherhood, then like this is what I know I need, so why not, join? And then once I made that decision to join, it was like, okay, I'm going to take everything he says and I'm going to implement it. And there might be some stuff that like I don't implement, but I'll try it a little bit my way. But most of it was implementing like exactly what you do, implement it. Okay. And then every week, like the way you had us building, every week I was learning new things. And then we have our calls on Friday night. Then over the weekend, you have that whole weekend to digest a call, because it's not like, oh, Friday night, you get this little download and like that's it. No, it like goes into the whole week, and then it goes even in past Monday. And then you start thinking, and you're like, okay, now Thursday's coming, and you're like, well, I got to debrief everything that I just experienced and then go into the next call. And a lot of times too, a brother would have an issue and you're like, man, I'm dealing with that same thing or something similar. And so you're also getting what he's unlocking. Prime example was a brother who had a perfect day, and he was like, man, I woke up at 03:30 or whatever, and like I didn't go to bed till 01 or 01:30. And he's like, I wasn't tired, I had a ton of energy, I hit all the buckets, like family time, work. I mean, he just nailed it out. And it's like, those are the days that you want, those are the days that you need. And it's like, if you can have those days, then those days lead to weeks. And that's, I think, another thing that helped me out tremendously was just not being alone, having other brothers, and knowing that, hey, you knew what I needed, which was the discipline and all the other little tools that you taught.
Yeah, bro. That's cool. Yeah, that's the thing that called out to me too, because one thing that I told you, when you became the Titan of the Quarter, was like you poured into the Brotherhood, and it kind of makes sense now that you're explaining what you were looking for inside of the Brotherhood. You also gave, and the crazy part is you gave that sense to a lot of the guys in there. A lot of people did tell me that they could talk to you. I think you were the one, even in the first few weeks, initiating like, hey, let's jump, let's have a chat after this call, and you were connecting, and there's like no reason to do it, but you were doing it. You were being called to do it. You were doing it, and you were giving not only yourself what you needed, but you were giving these brothers what they didn't even know they needed, which was brotherhood, camaraderie, and running as a lone wolf. Like I always talk about being the average of the people you hang out the most with. And sometimes when you're by yourself, man, and you're taking those long ass drives, all you got is the negative feedback loops that are going on in the mind, and it's just creating more of that. So I love that, because that's one of the things that actually stood out for me, that you were just going above and beyond for these guys. And again, like, you didn't have to, you chose to, and that kind of shows like what it means to really have people that have your back. So I love that you did that for the guys the way that you wanted it to. So that was awesome, man. And so let's talk about the leap, okay? Because 50 to 100, I think that when you celebrated 100, you celebrate a lot of different things in your personal life too, like what you got the kids involved in, blah, blah, blah. We'll unpack that in a second. But talk to me about the 50 jump into 100. What happened in between that? Because I think that's what a lot of the brothers too inside of the initiative were interested to hear. What happened during that time? Because they were on the same calls as you. What happened with you?
So I would actually say that the more important thing that happened wasn't the money. And this is what's going to be a little bit crazy. It was actually what you said about earlier, which was family. Like, one of the things that I implemented almost right away was like, dude, I'm not working weekends anymore. Like, unless I absolutely have to. And it's like, okay. And so I got my kids in soccer practice, or soccer, got them into a soccer league. And so started, okay, every Saturday at 10 a.m., like, or 8 o'clock, or whenever it was, I would make sure that like that time was boxed off. and then made that a priority. And then so that started getting me to feel better, at least on the family side, and like seeing like the first week of the game, it's like practice in the game. My son got a participation like trophy, which was really cool because it was for enthusiasm. He's like the most enthusiastic kid out of the soccer thing. And so like, it's like, man, you're getting those little wins of like family time. And then your son, like my son still talks about that. Like I talked to him today. I said, hey, you want to do soccer again? It's going to come up soon. And he's like, yeah, and it's like, he's like, I want more trophies. And so, once I started fixing that, then it was like, okay, I'm taking care of the family. I made these priorities that required me to fix my business, because it's like you can't just take off like work 7 or 6 days a week and then take off the weekends. Like that doesn't work that way. So how did I fix that? And then it was, once I figured that out, then it was like, okay, now I need to find another lead that can run a lot of my jobs. And so that's kind of where one of the biggest crutches that I fixed was finding the right person to run. And like all throughout, like I think in the brotherhood, like it was like, oh, fired this sub, fired that sub, fired this guy, fired that guy. Like they'd only be good for like 1 or 2 jobs and I have to let them go. And so I dealt with that, during this whole time from going to, from 50 to 100, was just finding the right guys and then dialing all those little things in, and then still trying to dial the family in, and then eliminating all distractions. So like, we talk about vices a lot in the brotherhood. Like, different brothers would have different vices, and like my biggest vice wasn't alcohol, wasn't drugs or anything like that. It was just Netflix. Like I just de-stressed off of that. So I cut that out for like a good 2 to 3 months. I still do it now, but like, and that's something that like I'm fighting again. It's like, man, I gotta knock this off. But at least I'm aware, and so, that so going from 50 to the 100, I would say I was fixing what was broken, what I felt was broken inside me, which was like not being with family. And then once I started fixing that, in order to fix that, it required me to fix the work. And in order to, because it's like anybody can just work 7 days a week or 6 days a weweek. It's actually pretty easy. It's just, you're just grinding. But, if you're broken, it's not going to last for long.
Yeah, 100%. So by prioritizing what was really important to you, it forced you to think different, more optimal inside of the business, which is
Correct.
great. And that, dude, that's a great lesson for every fucking business owner. That's a father, that's a husband, that's got kids. Like when you do that, people are afraid of pressure, but pressure is really good for us. It's the thing that makes us think like, okay, maybe I don't need all this shit. Maybe I'm overcomplicating, and that's why I feel so busy all the time. Maybe I just have to make decisive action on these 1, 2, 3 things, and those are the biggest needle movers. So for you to go from 50 to 100 was really spending more time on the things that filled you up. Are you down to share that quick story about the red car, the red toy that you talked about? Because I
Oh,
haven't forgotten that shit. That
yeah,
gave me chills when I read that.
yeah. So, I was working a lot, right? And so, my son I came home one night and my son had a toy that he left out in front of the door. So when I opened the door, he knew that I would like stumble on it, and it was something that he left me because he wanted to play. And it was just one of those situations where like it was the best feeling in the whole world, but it also broke you.
Yeah.
It was like he wanted to play, he knew he couldn't, but he thought of me, and he thought that, hey, if I put this toy here, when he comes in the door late at night, he's gonna see it. And that's like exactly what happened, man. It was just like, one of those situations where you really look back and you're just like, dude, it's not about the money. It's like, yeah, we need money to survive and we need money for, things. But it really comes back to that connection. If you can get that type of connection, is just pure love, from a 4-year-old, at the time he was 4. So yeah, and so that was, just an amazing moment between him and I. And it's something that I think about often. So
Yeah, bro. When I read that, I was like, "Damn, man, that's love." And so when we think about like now being able to make it to the sports games and things like that, And you said that he was like excited to want to get more trophies to be there. I would think, from my perspective, bro, that that excitement for that is because he also knows that you're present and you were there, part of that memory, you know. And to know that you're part of those moments now versus before, you know, not being able to make it to every memory or milestone or whatever the case might be, to be able to be part of some of those things. How does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a bottomless pit of love. You know what I mean? It's just like you can literally get lost there. It's just like, your family should be like that. Your family should be, just nothing but pure love. And like I get that from my wife, I get that from my daughter, I get that from my son, and it's like, we give it to each other. My uh, daughter and son have like the best relationship that I think I have three siblings, and like they're they're like just so glued together. And we were close, but like I just see them too, and they're like, he'll do anything for her, and it's like I'll do anything for you. And so it's just having that kind of dynamic. And then my wife just constantly pours into them like emotional intelligence. So like I feel like some of the things that they do and say are just like, dude, who taught you that? Like, it's pretty cool. So, and then not missing it, right? Like you don't want to miss those things, like because 10 years from now, they're gonna be like kick rocks, and maybe they won't. Like a lot of people talk about that, right? They're like, oh, when your kid's 17 or 15 or 12 or whatever, they're never gonna want to be with you. And I'm like, your kids,
Yeah,
like, that's not how we're rolling.
yeah. Yep, yep. How you treat them now and how they experience you now, with
Yeah.
especially during all the bullshit happening in the business, how they receive you now is how they're gonna want you in the future.
Yeah,
So
so my son will tell me like, hey dad, you're gonna pay your guys a lot of money so you can be here, right? Like that's his new thing. It's like, and then my daughter is like, dad, every morning, dad, you have to work today. Because it's like I'm still out there, I'm still, I'm at a different level. I'm making things happen versus actually working in you know, on the actual floors and whatnot. So
and you gotta love, man. They're in your corner, if I can cheering you on, bro. That's awesome.
yeah,
So
yeah, no, they're yeah. So my son, there's another thing he does. He talks about a jar. He's like, Dad, are is the jar full? Because he thinks if the jar's full, like you're good, like you're staying
yeah,
home and you're gonna just be with us forever. And he says stuff like that, like, "Oh, I'm never gonna leave you and mom. Like I'm always gonna stay here. I'm just gonna love you." And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. But we'll
and dude,
see.
that's fucking awesome. That's why I haven't stopped smiling, because people need to understand, like, that's real wealth. Like, that's
Oh,
happiness
100%. Yeah.
to have that, you know. And then people like your kids are cheering you on, man. That's
And,
winning right there.
and like, you don't like as a father, like I would say once I had my first kid, like you find love, like there's a whole different type of love, right? So like a lot of people don't have kids don't understand like how can you just be so cheesy? Like, you're a hard dude, but then when it comes to your kid, like you melt, and like same thing with my daughter. There's aspects of her that's like, she's a girl, and just last night, like she got out of the shower and like her hair automatically curled up, and then she's just got these like locks. I'm like, dude, where did you get that from? Like your mom doesn't have it, like where's that coming from? And just they're just so cute, and it's just like you don't want to miss any of it. You want to stay there as long as possible. So
100%, man. I
yeah,
love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm the same with my daughter. Just she turned 1, and dude, we're looking back when we first moved to Texas. You know, it hasn't even been a year yet, and we're like, dude, she wasn't even walking, and it's only been like 6 months, seven
yeah,
months. The time flies, man. So let's talk about the next jump. So you went from 50 to 100, 100 to 150 plus.
yeah,
Um, Now you're experiencing different challenges, and you mentioned earlier you're kind of going back to the Netflix thing, new levels, new devils, you know. And
yeah.
it's learning stigma. So what caused the 100 to 150 jump?
So that was just 100% dialed in, right? That
Yeah,
was like a healthy pipeline. The only way to do that is like you have a ton of business, and so like I had a ton of business just lined up, ready to rock and roll, and like then it was just like, okay, let's push operations to the max and see how much we can get done, and like that's what we did in January, or just last month was just like we started jobs like January 2nd, was a job, and it was just like go 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 and finish as many as we could, and they were big jobs, right? So that also helped, but not needing to be on top of the people that are actually working for you is huge. It's like you start building that trust, and just like, look, I know you're going to do it right. Feel free to reach out to me if you need help or you need guidance. And a lot of it's on the technical level. Like flooring is very technical. There's a lot of aspects where flooring fails because of a certain thing, or certain, whether it's not leveling the floor out correctly, or doing something, or not installing it correctly, breaking the locking system. There's a lot of like technical issues that can happen. And so by having someone that I could trust was like, and then say, okay, what can you do? How fast? And then, I broke them, right? And that was like, okay, I can get to here and we'll be good, but I can't go past here. And then another thing was, had a secondary job with a different crew that I tried out. And so that went well, but there was things that, because I wasn't on top of them, I was like, okay, well, I can't treat you like this crew, And so like learning that was a lot of more command and control. I'd step back, make sure everything was good, and then move back forward, and then be where I needed to be. And then things broke, like, operationally, we had a lot of issues. We had the freeze that happened. Shipping was delayed, so like driving up to Dallas for a day, coming right back, and making sure the guys weren't missing any timelines and stuff like that. And a lot of that was like, dude, you could hire someone to drive up there and do that. And it's like, yeah, but it that needs to be done prior to needing that. So like that's one of the things I need to work on, right? Is, okay, I need to find a delivery company that if I run into this issue in Dallas, I don't have to drive up there myself. I can just have this delivery driver that already is in Dallas drive down here, drop it off, and drive back up. So it's all those little things that, as they're breaking, you're able to now record it and sit back and figure out, how do I fix this strategically, or how do I fix this before it becomes an issue, or where did this go wrong? And by being able to take a step back, you're able to fix those things, and by being able to fix those things and them not breaking, then you're able to scale more. So it was a lot of that kind of back and forth, figuring out what's the limit, what's the left lateral limit, what's the right lateral limit, when can I push forward, when do I need to hunker down and fix something. So
Same. And so that's why we talk a lot about reflection. It seems like you're spending a lot more time reflecting on areas of the business because, once you start getting to a certain level, it takes more time to really think through solutions, not only for the now, but for the future as well. I think you may have mentioned there's patterns between 50K and things you're noticing now at the level that you're at now of what's coming back up for you. Did I mishear that, or is there a pattern?
no, yeah. So going from 50 to 100, I felt was like pretty. I mean, it wasn't as hard as going from, I would say, like 100 to the 150, because it's just like you just added another, like, you think about it, I'm doing 3 times more work, but I'm not, right? Like that, because I've learned how to kind of buy back my time, and then also put the right people in place to run the operations. So I think that's been the biggest challenge, from the 50 to the 100, was getting that person. And then once I got that person, then seeing, all right, how much can you handle before you break?
Right.
And then it was the seeing the same issues, was that, okay, when he broke, then it was all back on me. And then it was like, man, now I'm breaking. And so then it's like, man, this kind of felt like what it was back at 40, 50, even 30. Like like having the same issues. And then it's like, okay, all this stress builds up. And then it's like, dang, all I want to do tonight, instead of like doing admin work, which, it's been a thing that I just hate it. It's like, okay, now I've got to, and I think most people in the field of construction, like, we're not there for the admin stuff. So, but yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing for me is like, okay, now I'm stressed out again, and now I need to like blow off some steam. So let me watch this Netflix thing or whatever, scroll on YouTube or do something that I shouldn't be doing, right? And like those, that's just noise. It's just 100% distraction. It serves you no good. Like it's not even helping you out with the stress. It's just gonna prolong things. You're procrastinating, and it's like, okay, now there's another loop. That's your vice. That's your issue. Like, it's like an alcoholic that wants to drink but can't control his liquor. It's like there's going to be issues, whether it's fighting or family or whatever, or even a job. Like there's going to be issues. So the same thing goes for, any other vices. You're doing this, but what is it? What are you giving up? And so that's something that like I still, to this day I struggle with, like, because it's like, oh man, I need to relax, and I can't work 24/7. I can't, and then a lot of it is, okay, now just like I needed the operations guy, now I need an admin person, and so it's learning that, okay, this is the same issue, just at another level, or a different issue, right? Different area, but yeah. So just needing to fix that's the next thing.
And the thing is too, like the reason why the stress is coming back up is because you're having to learn and operate at a much different level, right? So like for example, at 50K, you're delegating the tools, you're delegating the running and gunning part of it. But at this level, you kind of have to delegate even more command and control. Like you have to let go more, and you have to start trusting your systems more. And it's a very fucking stressful for any business owner who's like had such a pulse on their business before, to start delegating it completely out, because it scares us. It's like, well, wrong person, business will tank. Wrong person, they're going to leave a bad impression on somebody, or it's going to ruin my reputation. It's going to do something to affect what I built so far. And some things come up for us, and it's not just those things. There's so many different things that can come up, but you're operating at such a high level now in a condensed period of time. By the way, most people don't ever reach high numbers in fucking 5 to 10 years, let alone 6 months, 12 months from start of business to now. So you're having to constantly like learn, grow, develop yourself personally, think different, operate, open up the neural pathways. And that's why it's important for us to talk about that too, because some people are like, oh, well, I dropped the vice, good forever. No, the shit comes back. We're human. That's why it's a habit. It's something that we have to make sure that we're aware of, but being aware of it is what allows us to take control of it. And so now your biggest thing that obviously we're going to be working on is making sure that you're focused on how do we productively continue to move you forward without having the need to go back to Netflix, because all that does is it kind of puts a pause on it, on all the stress, versus
Yeah.
like anything with it. Like it's still waiting for us behind this fucking door, even though we closed it. It is what it is. So I just appreciate the honesty with that, because again, a lot of people pretend once they get to a level like, nope, I'm hot shit, like, but the truth is we're all human. We all have things we have to prioritize. There's levers we have to pull and push at moments, but once this unlocks, dude, then it's 200K, then it's 250, and it's more and more and more. But right now, you're just looking inside of you, and I think that's one of the biggest things that people need to understand. You're focused more on the family, relearning yourself now at this level in such a short period of time, then the business is going to grow itself. And so if you have to choose three things, bro, how long have you been in the initiative for now again?
When did it start? Was it October or
Yeah, something like that. So
or
probably,
September?
I think maybe I started talking about it in September, launched October, closer to October. It's been a
Yeah,
minute. It's probably been 6 months, maybe.
yeah, yeah. So that's when I started. I started in the beginning. So
Top three things you would say the biggest unlocks that you've got that's been beneficial in any area of your life, business, personally, in family. What are the top three biggest things that you've gotten from being plugged in so far?
so I mean, I think kind of one more take on the core initiative real quick is that like the brotherhood, we're humble, right? Like I think that's one of the things is like you're humble and you just lay it all out, right? Because it's like that's the only way this works. Like if you want to fight your demons, you have to be open about it and say, this is what I'm fighting. And if you're still fighting a vice, like you're still fighting that vice. It's okay. Like, it's like, and with the brotherhood that some of them that have already fought that, they're like, hey, do the X, Y, and Z. And like I know there's aspects that I need to work on. Like you meditate, right? Like I don't. Like I know how to do transcendental meditation and stuff like that. I took that course, a while back. Like that was one of the things in the Marine Corps too. They wanted us to do yoga after Iraq and stuff. And like, Billy Blanks, like that dude. I don't know if anybody remembers that guy, but the Taibo guy. If you look it up, anyways, he came like on the base and was like, "We're gonna teach you this," and it was supposed to be like all this de-stress stuff. And it's like, back then it was like the best way to de-stress was just drink alcohol. Like that's, so you just learn. But the three biggest unlocks, man, I think that I probably have to reflect a little bit deeper, but just on a surface level, the first things that come in was like, hey man, once you get your family right and they're good and they're like, yeah, we're good, like, that is amazing, right? The other thing is, you talk a little bit about the North Star. Like, what is that? What is your vision, right? And so if you can get your vision locked in and you can get that, or not even necessarily a vision, like, or, I mean, ideally everyone knows like, hey, this is my purpose in life. There's some people that you don't know what your purpose is, and that's okay. Well, what's your North Star? Like, what are you aiming for? What's your next goal? What's your next target? Like, figuring that out. Now, is that something that can wake you up at 03:30 in the morning to do what you need to do to get to the next level? And if the answer is no, then like you already know you're not going to be successful in whatever you're doing. So that's something like I look at that too. Like flooring, it's like, yeah, it's cool, it's a cool business, but like I want to own other businesses. So that's like something that I'm also working on and thinking of, and it's part of the purpose that I feel like I'm here on earth for. It's not money, right? And so like once you realize it's not money, then and that money is a byproduct of whatever your output is in business, then it's like, okay, well then if it's not money, then what is it? It's the other things that drive you. So, and then the third thing, I just go back to the calls, man. Like just being able to unlock, what we're struggling with. So for an example, December, like I was beating myself up because like, I mean, it was so stupid, but it was like my numbers weren't right. I wasn't hitting the right numbers. And like you gave me grace and you were like, look, dude, like, who cares? Like, you're not going to hit it. Like, because I was like, man, I did 100K last month. Like, why can't I? I'm not even, I'm going to be a little bit under. Like, that's not cool. Like, so I started looking at that as a business failure and a failure. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's holidays too. Like, you're good. Your mind can start, solidifying and justifying everything, right? It's like, that's why we have Democrats and Republicans. Like, but anyways, it's like, it depends on which side you're looking at it. And in reality, it's like you have that other person, that's like, dude, stop. Like, don't beat yourself up. And so that's when I was like, okay, I stopped that. Like, and so I think that in those moments where I struggled, like being able to be on that Friday call and being like, hey, I can hit you up. It doesn't have to be a Friday, but having that Friday and being able to like pour in the problem of the week, of the month, or whatever I'm dealing with has been huge. So I would say that would be the third thing. It's just you're getting your unlocks faster because you've been there, you've done it, and you run a lot of businesses and do a lot of different things. And I mean, there's times where even with me, like, you start comparing yourself, and I try never to do that. Like I always, it's like it's an internal battle between you and you alone. Everything is, but you start seeing some of these guys and they're online and they're killing it. And it's just like, dude, I need an online business. Like, I don't want to be, working in construction and having all these issues. And like, there's a huge thing right now in construction with immigration where like people are afraid to go to work, so, some people are dealing with that, a lot of roofing companies are dealing with that. So like, that's a thing that, it's like, well, we already knew that was coming, so yeah, that would be the third one is just you, man. Just unlock those Friday calls are game changers.
If you didn't have those three things, like those three elements that supported you in kind of the journey, one of the last questions I have about the journey is like, where do you think you would be if like you're still watching Netflix, if you still had the Vice, if you didn't have the brotherhood, if you didn't have somebody to watch your back while you're fucking sleeping, all the things that have been helpful for you in your journey so far, where do you think you would be if you never plugged in 6 months ago?
I wouldn't be here, right? So, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am on business, right? And I wouldn't probably be where I am with the family. So, you would just be different. You'd be you. You'd be the original guy before you plugged in, right? And like, so whatever version one was, that's who you're going to be. So I think that, um, where I'd be, I'd probably be struggling. I'd be struggling in business, struggling with the family, and it's like how long you have to suffer before enough is enough and you change your life. And like you can do that now, you know? So, and so I think that that's what like that was one of the biggest things that I knew was like, all right, I'm going to plug in. I'm going to do everything he says. I'm not going to deviate. Like I said, there's a few things that I tweak. Like, dude, I don't go to the gym, right? Like I haven't figured out how to find time for the gym. And like, and I know that there are certain aspects of that I can unravel, right? But that's the next phase, right? That's okay. We got all this stuff done. Okay, now we need to focus on the gym aspect. Like, how do I get that time? And so and that's something that you taught in the very beginning was like, dude, you're not going to fix your whole life overnight. Like, you're gonna focus on like these
Some
different
fucking
areas.
people, man. They really think that like overnight everything has to get like squared away, but it's
Yeah,
like no,
yeah.
man. There's
No, no, and yeah, exactly. And it's like, man, I physical labor is like working out. So like, and doing that 8 hours and then going to the gym is like, dude, you don't really need it. But then there's aspects where, it's nice because I know that that would be a huge stress relief. And that's, I think the biggest thing is how do you roll off the stress, right? And it's like, man, just go to the gym. So that's another thing, right? Is how many brothers here know you have your problem, know you can isolate your problem and you know a solution to your problem, but you don't do it. And then the answer to that is why? Why aren't you doing it? And so when you tell me like, where would you be, dude? I don't freaking really know. Like, would I be miserable? Probably. Would I be at the same kind of level? Maybe. Or maybe I'd have just been like, man, forget all this. Like, I'm, gonna go work at an easier job. You know, Sam's Club's paying $18 an hour. You know.
fuck, man, fuck that.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah. And like my house is paid off, like that. So that was a whole nother thing, right? Is like comfort, right? Like I have certain comfort that I think other people don't have. But the problem with comfort is you die, It's like there's no purpose, there's no nothing. I mean, and I think by not being with my kids and my wife, like it definitely helps you realize how important it is to be with them. And so like there's a lot of people that work from home, and dude, it's tough working with kids, and like they're in your office and they're bugging you, and like you're like, hey, I need 5 minutes to make this quick phone call, and they're like, 5 minutes to them is like, okay, I can stay outside and knock on the door, and it's just like you're navigating these different things, and it's yeah. But at the flip side, think about all the people that are at work that are not seeing their kids. Like, man, they would love to have their kid 5 feet from them bothering them. So it's like I think we all live in like our own realities, but then the only way you figure it out is if you reflect back and you ask yourself why, and ask yourself questions.
Grass is always greener on the other side, but when
Yeah.
you make the best and you optimize and you figure out the way forward, right? It's always about how do we do it? Not fuck, man, this is it. This is what I got. It's
Yeah.
always finding a way forward. Bro, if there's people that you guys are in Texas and they want to check you out, what you're up to, your business, they want to support another veteran, somebody from the military, your business, they need a hookup on flooring or any other businesses that you own, how can these guys find you?
Probably the best thing is Facebook, man. Just look me up. Anybody with that last name is related to me, so you know.
There you go. And final question, bro. If somebody is in the position you were 6 months ago, what's something you can pour into them right now, just to get their head oriented in the right direction?
Yeah,
What's something you want to give them?
if you're like me, you're alone, right? So don't be alone, right? Plug in, and find a tribe that can support you in whatever you do, and I think that I'm fixing so much that like there's parts of me that's like wanting to take the brotherhood to the next level myself. Like there's initiatives that I have that I'm like, dude, we can do this, and like the brotherhood would be just that much better. And like that's something that I think that I'm looking forward to the most in the brotherhood is like iron sharpens iron. So that's when we all have our different takes in life, and it's like it's truly a beautiful thing to see these other guys that are just right there with you trying to get better. So if you're somebody that you're hurting, right, like in everyone hurts in a different way, but whatever it is, if you're lonely, if you're confused, if you're just at any suffering, pain, like those are usually the motivators that will get you to fix your life. Usually is a negative thing that gets you to fix your life, that you're fed up, you're done, you're ready to go to the next level. And then the other thing too is that when you get there, just put out, like make that commitment to yourself. Like so many people will join something and it's like it's almost that processing of like not doing something to doing it, and then once you're there you don't put out. Like and it happens everywhere in life, right? Employees are like that too. Like you're, oh, I want this job, and then you get the job, and then you're at the job and you're just like, dude, you kind of suck. I gotta let you go, man. You're not as good as you hype yourself up to be. So like that's the
Hold
same thing.
yourself good.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Is it's like you have to be at that level, and a lot of it is just you know. I think if I could reach out to a brother and I said, look, if you're hurting with your family, if you're hurting with your fitness, if you're hurting with your business, like it's all internal. It's all internal issues that are going on. So join, and then let's figure those issues out, and that's what's going to get you to make your next leap. So and how fast you apply it, how hard you go, like that's what's going to determine whether you quantum leap or not. And so like there's levels to that too. I think a lot of guys, they've got a lot of good that they've done, but there's like, man, there's so much more, right? So I think we'll talk maybe about that tonight. I don't know, there's some other
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, we got a call coming up soon, so hell
Yeah.
yeah. I'll tell you guys. I'll leave everybody with this. Keith does a lot, like behind the scenes too. Because I mean, there's no way that somebody levels up and takes those quantum leaps without doing a lot of the work. And the reason why Keith, number one, was the first in the Core 10. Number two, he's the first Titan of the Core we've ever had. I actually created that award because of him. That was inspired by you. If you didn't know that, bro.
That's awesome.
So I want you to understand, like being a standard is very inspirational because when you're around people like Keith and they're operating at a high level and you see their growth, you see where they started and you see how open they are. They're vulnerable about their shit. There's like no ego or pride. This guy shows up to calls, whether like sometimes I don't know if you're at the fucking store or you're in the car or you're like going to the job, leaving a job, or you're at the like, dude, it doesn't matter. You have zero excuses on why you can't show up. You've been to every single freaking call. And I just wanted to end this with that because like you just show up and it really just is showing the fuck up and doing the work and implementing all the teaching. So like an awesome job, bro. And I love that you're representing the brotherhood because dude, this is what it's all about. This is the shit that inspires me to keep showing up to grow the damn thing, to find more guys that we can help and mold. And it kind of like brings back like the military for us, like we get to instill things into others and we know that we're making a difference in people's lives. So awesome,
Yeah,
bro. I appreciate your
100%.
time and I appreciate you being here.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, bro. See you in the call.
See you later.
Peace.
Yep.